All right, let's get into it. Today, we're not just going to walk through a book summary. We're starting a descent. This is our deep dive into the psychological voyage at the very core of Joseph Conrad's masterpiece, Heart of Darkness. It's a journey up a river, sure, but it's one that leads not just into the center of a continent, but right into the tangled, dark nature of humanity itself. So let's begin. Now, you'd think a story like this would start somewhere remote, somewhere wild. But no, we're on a yacht on the River Thames, the very artery of the British Empire, watching the sunset over London, the greatest town on earth. And then our narrator, Marlowe, just shatters this perfect civilized scene with that one line. He forces everyone listening, and he forces us, to see this beacon of progress for what it once was, a savage, terrifying wilderness to the Roman soldiers who conquered it, a land of swamps, thick forests, and death. He's making an absolutely crucial point right from the get-go. Darkness isn't some far-off place you travel to. It's part of the history of every place. It was right here all along. And Marlowe, he's not just giving a history lesson. He's setting up the moral battlefield for his entire story. He talks about the Romans, calls their conquest what it was, robbery with violence. But then he asks, what redeems an act like that? What makes it something other than just brutal theft? And his answer is an idea. A genuine, powerful belief in something bigger than yourself, civilization, progress, bringing a guiding light, something you can truly believe in and sacrifice for. This right here becomes the measuring stick for everything that follows, and it hangs this huge, haunting question over the whole story. Does this European adventure in Africa have a redeeming idea like that? Or is it just a new kind of darkness, one that's even more hollow and greedy than the old one? And just like that, Marlowe starts his own tale. He talks about being a kid fascinated by maps, especially a map of Africa with this one river that looked like an immense snake uncoiled. Years later, as an adult, that image just grabs him out of nowhere. He says he felt charmed, which is just the perfect word, isn't it? It captures both the incredible pull and the hidden, venomous danger of what he's about to do. This isn't just a guy looking for a job. This is a fated, almost hypnotic pull toward the absolute unknown. The creepy feeling starts almost immediately. Marlowe goes to this unnamed European city to get his contract, and the company's headquarters just feels dead. He calls it a whited sepulcher. Like a tomb that's been painted a brilliant white on the outside, but inside it's just full of bones and rot. The street is deserted. Inside, it's deathly silent. He says, "It was just as though I had been led into some conspiracy. This is no bustling hub of a noble cause. This is a quiet, eerie place hiding a deeply rotten secret." So he goes inside, and the sense of doom just gets heavier. He sees two women, one young, one old, and they're knitting black wool. Right away, his mind jumps to the fates from Greek mythology. The ones who spin the threads of every human life. And this black wool, it feels like they're knitting a funeral shroud for every single man who walks through that door. The older woman gives in this look of unconcerned wisdom, like she's seen 1,000 guys like him, and already knows how it's going to end. And in his mind, they become the literal guardians at the door of darkness. Okay, so then he has his medical exam, but it's a total sham. The doctor couldn't care less about Marlowe's physical health. Instead, he starts measuring Marlowe's skull, taking notes for some bizarre study on the mental changes that happen to men who go out there. The doctor just calmly says that he never gets to see the men when they come back because, as he puts it, the changes take place inside. And then, with absolutely zero emotion, he asks that question. Ever any madness in your family? It's a shocking moment. It tells you everything. The company knows what this journey does to a person's mind. The biggest threat isn't malaria or dysentery. It's your own sanity completely unraveling. As he's finally leaving, after this weird conversation with his aunt who's going on about him being an emissary of light, this feeling just completely washes over him. This isn't a normal trip. It's a descent. He feels like he's not just crossing an ocean to get to another continent. He's on a journey to a deeper, more fundamental place, like the geological core of the planet. The world he knows is already falling away, and something far more ancient and way more dangerous is waiting for him. The second Marlowe arrives in Africa, any little shred of an idea about a noble cause is just instantly and brutally destroyed. The reality he finds on the ground is a twisted, grim parody of all the high-minded ideals he heard back in Europe. One of the very first things he sees is a warship just sitting off the coast, firing its massive guns into the jungle. But there's nothing there. No village, no army, no visible enemy, just endless silent trees. Pop, a shell flies out. Silence. He's told they're firing on a camp of enemies hidden somewhere inland. But the whole act is so completely pointless, so disconnected from anything real, that Marlowe can only say it has a touch of insanity. This is civilization's grand entrance, loud, violent, and utterly meaningless. When he gets to the company's first station, it's just total chaos. There's rusting machinery everywhere, pointless blasting of a cliff face, and a chain gang of emaciated local laborers. And then, right in the middle of all this decay, he sees him, the company's chief accountant. This guy is a vision of perfect, immaculate order. Marlowe says he actually developed a real respect for the man, not for his bookkeeping, but for the sheer force of will it must take to keep up an appearance like that in what he calls the great demoralization of the land. The accountant is like a living symbol of civilization's flimsy facade, just meticulously holding it together while chaos is literally closing in on all sides. But just a short walk from that accountant's tidy little office, Marlowe finds this. He wanders into a grove of trees where the so-called inefficient workers have been taken to die. He calls it the Grove of Death. And here, the true price of the whole operation is laid bare. These aren't even people anymore. They're black shadows, just skeletal figures twisted in every pose of contorted collapse. The neat numbers in the accountant's books, they're built on this. That starched white collar is kept clean just a few steps away from the deepest circle of hell on earth. And it's right here, in this place of insane contrasts, the clean collar and the dying men, that a name finally comes up. The accountant is complaining about the groans of a sick man nearby disturbing his work, and he casually mentions that, further up the river, Marlowe will meet a Mr. Kurtz. He calls Kurtz a first-class agent, a guy who sends in more ivory than all the other agents put together. He is, the accountant says, a very remarkable person. In this world of complete failure and moral rot, the name Kurtz just hangs in the air, a whisper of competence, of purpose, and of deep, deep mystery.
After months of frustrating delays, Marlowe finally gets on his steamboat and begins the real journey, a 200-mile trip up that vast river, heading straight for the man named Kurtz. And this is where the journey itself becomes the entire point.
See, this isn't a trip forward into a new country. It feels like a journey backward in time. Marlowe feels like he's literally leaving his own century behind, traveling back to a prehistoric version of Earth. The silence is overwhelming. The forest is like a solid green wall. The whole world is boiled down to its most basic parts: water, plants, and silence. Modern life, with all its rules and comforts and certainties, is just being peeled away, layer by layer, with every single mile that little steamboat struggles upstream. But this silence isn't peaceful. It's not empty space. No, it feels alive. It feels conscious. Marlowe describes it as the stillness of an implacable force, something ancient and powerful with a hidden, unknowable goal. The wilderness here isn't just pretty scenery. It's an active character in the story. It watches them. And its gaze feels vengeful, like these little men on their noisy boat are trespassing in a sacred, primordial place where they absolutely do not belong. So when we hear that famous phrase, heart of darkness, it's both literal and metaphorical. Yeah, it's the geographical center of this massive continent, but more importantly, it's a journey into the uncharted territory of the human soul once you strip away all the comforting lies of society. Every bend in that river takes them further from the world they know and deeper into a primal state of just being. At this point, the feeling of being cut off from reality is total. Marlowe says we're so used to seeing nature as a conquered monster, something we've tamed and put in chains. But out here, the monster is free. The world doesn't even feel like Earth anymore. It's like being one of the first humans on a totally alien planet, facing a power that hasn't been named or categorized or controlled by anyone. It's a face-to-face confrontation with pure, raw, untamed existence, and it's absolutely terrifying. And here's the paradox. As the physical world around Marlowe dissolves into this prehistoric dream, the one human thing that gets stronger and more solid is the idea of Kurtz. He becomes the single focal point of the whole journey, a figure built entirely from rumors and little scraps of conversation, a legend waiting at the end of the river. Marlowe overhears the station manager and his uncle talking about Kurtz, and from their jealous, spiteful whispers, a clearer picture of this man starts to form. He's a genius, a prodigy, a man of incredible success, and, frankly, unnerving ambition. But the thing that threatens these hollow men the most? Kurtz has high ideals. He talks about progress, about bringing light and knowledge. He seems to actually believe in the very idea that's supposed to justify the whole colonial project. And for that reason, men like the manager, who have no ideals whatsoever, they both hate and fear him. Marlowe makes a point to tell us, his listeners on the boat, that at this stage of the story, Kurtz isn't a real person to him yet. He's just a concept, a myth, a voice, a name. He's the potential answer to the huge questions hanging over this whole journey. What happens to a man of great talent and great ideals when you drop him into the very center of this primordial darkness, completely alone, with no laws or police or neighbors to keep him in check? And that's where we leave Marlowe for now, right on the brink of that discovery. The little steamboat is crawling closer and closer to Kurtz's station. The world around him, Marlowe feels, isn't just a place anymore. It's a truth stripped of its cloak of time. It's humanity's ancient, savage reality laid bare. Kurtz has been living face to face with that truth. He has stared right into it. And the ultimate question is, what happened to him when that truth stared back?